Chapter 1. In the secret chambers of the Vatican, among manuscripts that official history prefers to forget, lies a document that the Inquisition attempted to destroy repeatedly, but never managed to eliminate completely. It is the true grimoire of Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa von Nettesheim, a work that transcends everything this brilliant Renaissance scholar dared to publish during his lifetime. While his famous treatise De Occulta Philosophia barely scratched the surface of his deepest discoveries, this hidden text reveals the most dangerous science he ever mastered, the art of transforming reality through the conscious power of the word. Agrippa was not simply an academic who speculated about esoteric subjects from the comfort of his study. He was an active practitioner of the Hermetic arts, a researcher who had deciphered secrets that the ancient masters of Egypt and Babylon had jealously guarded for millennia. His true grimoire contained no theatrical conjurations or superstitious formulas. It was a scientific manual on the vibratory nature of reality and how human consciousness, expressed through directed language, can literally alter the structure of experience. For years, Agrippa traveled through European courts, not only as a political advisor, but as a custodian of knowledge he had extracted from Arabic, Hebrew, Greek, and Egyptian sources. In Constantinople, he accessed texts that preserved the lost wisdom of the Library of Alexandria. In the Kabbalistic schools of Spain, he learned the secrets of gematria and the conscious manipulation of forces underlying sacred letters. In the Benedictine monasteries of Germany, he studied alchemical manuscripts that revealed how sound and intention can transmute not only metals, but the very matter of reality. But it was in his encounter with a mysterious master in Prague, a man who claimed to descend directly from the lineage of Hermes Trismegistus, that Agrippa finally understood the fundamental principle that would govern the rest of his work, that the entire universe is a verbal construction, a manifestation of the divine logos that can be influenced and redirected by any human being who understands the correct principles of conscious language. This master revealed to him something that would forever change Agrippa's understanding of the nature of reality. He showed him that words are not simply arbitrary symbols we use to communicate ideas. They are vehicles of creative force, carriers of specific vibrations that can order the quantum chaos of existence into coherent patterns. Every word pronounced with conscious intention acts as a command directed to the unified field of information that underlies all physical manifestation. Agrippa's secret grimoire meticulously documented these discoveries. It described how certain combinations of sounds can instantly alter emotional states, how specific words pronounced at precise astrological moments can influence apparently external events, and how complete mastery of the verbal art can convert an individual into a conscious co-creator of their life experience. Why was this knowledge considered so dangerous that it had to be suppressed? The answer lies in the revolutionary implications of truly understanding the power of language. A population that mastered the art of conscious speech would be impossible to control through propaganda, emotional manipulation, or any form of psychological coercion. Individuals who understood how their words literally create their reality could not be maintained in states of victimization, dependence, or despair. Chapter 2. The Inquisition instinctively recognized that Agrippa's grimoire represented an existential threat to any system based on keeping the masses in ignorance about their own creative power. They ordered the confiscation and destruction of all copies, the torture of anyone who admitted to having read the text, and the systematic elimination of all known students of Agrippa who might have memorized his teachings. But Agrippa had foreseen this persecution. Before papal agents arrived at his final residence in Grenoble, he had dispersed fragments of his grimoire among trusted initiates in different parts of Europe. Each fragment contained a portion of the complete knowledge, but no individual piece was sufficient to reconstruct the entire science. It was a security measure designed to preserve the essence of the knowledge while making it impossible for it to be misused by individuals without adequate spiritual preparation. During the following centuries, these fragments were secretly preserved in various esoteric traditions. The Rosicrucians incorporated Agrippa's techniques into their initiation rituals. The Freemasons used principles from his system in their symbolic ceremonies. Sephardic Kabbalists integrated his discoveries about the power of Hebrew letters into their contemplative practices. And Hermetic alchemists applied his methods to accelerate processes of internal transmutation. But never until now had it been possible to gather all the scattered pieces into a coherent synthesis that would reveal the complete science that Agrippa had developed. The fragments have finally been reunited, not through conventional academic research, but through what Hermeticists call direct transmission, the process by which knowledge preserved in higher dimensions of reality filters into ordinary consciousness when appropriate conditions align. The key to understanding Agrippa's system lies in recognizing that we live in a fundamentally verbal universe. This is not poetic metaphor, but literal description of the underlying structure of reality. Quantum physicists are beginning to confirm what Hermeticists always knew, that matter is organized information, and that information responds to consciousness in ways that transcend the limitations of linear space and time. Agrippa understood that human language, when used consciously, can interface directly with the information patterns that determine how physical experience manifests. Each word functions as an instruction directed to the quantum field, specifying which possibilities should collapse into actual reality and which should remain as unmanifested potentials. But not any casual use of language produces these effects. Agrippa discovered that the effectiveness of conscious speech depends on three precise factors: the clear intention of the speaker, the correct pronunciation of specific sounds, and alignment with cosmic rhythms that amplify the transmission of verbal information to the causal levels of reality. His grimoire contained detailed maps of how each of these factors operates and how they can be coordinated for maximum effectiveness. It described specific techniques for purifying intention of subconscious contaminations that reduce the potency of the word. It provided precise instructions on pronouncing power words in different sacred languages. And it specified optimal astrological moments when cosmic energies facilitate the manifestation of verbally directed intentions. Chapter 3, the fundamental principle upon which all of Agrippa's verbal science is built, is what Hermetic texts express as, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." This declaration, which exoteric religions interpret as theological dogma, is actually a precise technical description of how creation functions at the quantum level. The primordial word is not a specific word pronounced at some historical moment. It is the fundamental organizing principle that continuously orders quantum chaos into coherent patterns of experience. This cosmic logos operates through vibratory frequencies that can be emulated and directed by human beings who understand the correct principles of conscious vocalization. Agrippa discovered that the human vocal apparatus, when used appropriately, can generate exact replicas of the fundamental creative frequencies. The larynx, tongue, lips, and resonance cavities in the head form an instrument capable of reproducing the primordial sounds that organized matter at the moment of creation. When these sounds are pronounced with conscious intention and correct technique, they can literally recreate aspects of reality according to the speaker's specifications. But here lies the most extraordinary aspect of Agrippa's discovery. He found that different sounds affect different levels of reality. Some vocalizations primarily influence emotional and mental states. Others can alter biological processes in the physical body. The most powerful can influence external events that appear to be completely beyond the speaker's control. His grimoire classified these sounds into specific categories according to their characteristic effects. Harmonization sounds restore balance in systems that have fallen into dysfunctional patterns. Manifestation sounds accelerate the materialization of desired conditions. Protection sounds create fields of influence that repel adverse energies, and transmutation sounds facilitate fundamental transformations in the very structure of problematic situations. Each category required specific pronunciation techniques and particular environmental conditions for maximum effectiveness. Harmonization sounds worked best during dawn hours, when natural energies are in transition between yin and yang. Manifestation sounds were most potent during waxing moon, when cosmic forces favor expansion and growth. Protection sounds reached maximum potency during full moon, when lunar energy provides natural shields against negative influences. Agrippa had discovered something that modern science is beginning to validate. That sound is structured information capable of reorganizing matter at the molecular level. Semantic experiments have demonstrated that specific frequencies can create complex geometric patterns in sand, water, and other physical media. If sound can order inert matter into precise configurations, why couldn't it influence the more complex patterns that constitute our life experiences? Agrippa's genius consisted in having identified exactly which sounds produced which effects, and having developed a complete system for using this knowledge practically and safely. His grimoire was not a random collection of superstitious conjurations, but a technical manual that any person with sufficient dedication could learn to apply. Chapter 4. The most sophisticated dimension of Agrippa's system involved what he called the occult anatomy of words. The understanding that each element of human language, from individual vowels to complex combinations of consonants, corresponds to specific forces in the energetic structure of the universe. This correspondence is not arbitrary, but the result of fundamental vibratory patterns that govern both language formation and the organization of physical reality. His research in phonetic Kabbalah had revealed that the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet are not simply symbols for sounds, but codes representing the 22 fundamental forces that construct and maintain all manifestation. Each Hebrew letter encapsulates a specific aspect of the creative process, from the initiation of new cycles to the culmination of completed patterns. But Agrippa went beyond standard Kabbalistic tradition. He discovered that these same principles operate in all human languages, though in less obvious ways due to historical evolution that has obscured the original correspondences. Vowels, in particular, maintain direct connections with universal cosmic forces that transcend specific cultural limitations. The vowel A resonates with the principle of initiation and new beginnings. When pronounced with correct intention and technique, it can activate renewal processes in any area of life that has fallen into stagnation. The vowel E corresponds to the principle of expansion and growth. Its conscious pronunciation can accelerate the development of projects, relationships, or personal capacities that need additional momentum. The vowel I vibrates with the principle of concentration and focus. It is particularly useful for clarifying mental confusions, making important decisions, or directing scattered energies towards specific objectives. The vowel O resonates with the principle of protection and containment. It can be used to create healthy energetic boundaries or to maintain stability during periods of intense change. The vowel U connects with the principle of transmutation and profound transformation. Its conscious use can facilitate the resolution of complex karmic patterns or the healing of traumas that have resisted other intervention methods. Consonants function as modifiers that specify how vocalic forces will express themselves in particular circumstances. The consonant M, for example, has maternal qualities that nurture and protect. When combined with appropriate vowels, it can create powerful mantras for healing emotional wounds or establishing feelings of inner security. The consonant R possesses dynamic qualities that activate and energize. Combined correctly with vowels, it can generate verbal formulas that overcome psychological or physical inertia. The consonant S has serpentine qualities that facilitate transformation through gradual processes. Agrippa had meticulously cataloged these correspondences in his grimoire. But more importantly, he had developed methods for combining vocalic and consonantal elements into specific formulas that could be directed toward precise manifestation objectives. It was not sufficient to know the theoretical correspondences. It was necessary to understand how to coordinate multiple elements in sequences that would mutually amplify their effects. Chapter 5. One of the most extraordinary revelations of Agrippa's grimoire concerned what he called hidden power names, specific combinations of sounds that can activate latent capabilities in the human unconscious. These were not names of external entities that had to be invoked, but verbal codes that unlock potentials already existing within the individual psyche. Agrippa had discovered that the human unconscious operates according to principles similar to those governing modern computer operating systems. It contains enormously sophisticated programs for processing information, solving problems, and generating creative responses. But these programs remain inaccessible to the conscious mind unless they are activated through specific commands. Power names function as these activation commands. When pronounced with correct technique, they can awaken internal resources that transcend the normal limitations of conscious personality. Some names activate what Jung would call the superior function, the capacity to access solutions that emerge from levels of wisdom operating above ordinary analytical thinking. Other names awaken what the ancients called Akashic memory, access to information that transcends direct personal experience and includes ancestral, racial, and even cosmic knowledge. Individuals who learn to correctly pronounce these names report experiences where they know things they never consciously learned, can solve problems in areas where they have no formal training, or suddenly develop skills that seem to come from mysterious sources. The most powerful names in Agrippa's system were those that activated what he called the inner sanctuary, the aspect of human consciousness that maintains direct connection with universal cosmic intelligence. When this sanctuary opens through specific pronunciations, the individual can receive guidance on any situation, access healing energies that transcend normal human capacities, and even influence external events through what appears to be action at a distance. But Agrippa repeatedly warned that these power names should not be used casually or without adequate spiritual preparation. Suddenly, activating capabilities that the conscious personality is not prepared to handle can create severe psychological imbalances. His grimoire included detailed protocols for purification and preparation that had to be completed before attempting advanced pronunciations. These protocols involved not only spiritual disciplines like fasting, meditation, and prayer, but also specific practices for strengthening personal energetic structure. Agrippa had understood that working with powerful verbal forces requires what electricians would call proper grounding, stable connections with terrestrial energies that can absorb and neutralize any excess energetic charge that might accumulate during advanced work. Chapter 6. The practical foundations of transformational language, according to Agrippa's system, begin with understanding that the effectiveness of conscious speech depends more on the quality of intention than on the technical precision of pronunciation. A simple word pronounced with pure and focused intention will produce more dramatic effects than elaborate formulas recited mechanically without genuine understanding of their purpose. Purification of intention requires what Agrippa called examination of the heart, a process of radical honesty where the practitioner identifies and resolves any hidden motivation that might contaminate verbal work. Mixed intentions produce mixed results. Desires arising from wounded ego, need for control over others, or fear of personal insecurity will create interference that dramatically reduces the potency of directed speech. Agrippa had developed specific techniques for this internal purification process. The fundamental practice consists of clearly formulating, in writing, the specific result one desires to manifest through verbal work. Then, during periods of silent contemplation, allow any doubt, fear, or secondary motivation associated with this desire to emerge consciously. each emotional contamination that is identified must be examined compassionately until its origin and purpose are understood. Frequently, these contaminations arise from unhealed wounds or genuine needs that require direct attention rather than magical manifestation. When underlying needs are addressed appropriately, contaminations dissolve naturally, leaving clear and powerful intention. The second foundation is mastery of what Agrippa called conscious directed breathing, specific breathing techniques that create optimal internal conditions for pronouncing power words. Breathing not only supplies the air necessary for vocalization, it also establishes internal rhythms that synchronize the nervous system with cosmic frequencies that amplify verbal transmission. The basic technique consists of establishing a breathing pattern where inhalation lasts exactly twice as long as exhalation. If you exhale for a count of 4, inhale for a count of 8. This specific ratio creates coherence between the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems of the nervous system, facilitating states of consciousness where directed speech can operate with maximum effectiveness. During inhalation, the practitioner visualizes cosmic energy entering not only through the lungs, but through all pores of the body. This energy is temporarily stored in what Oriental texts call the lower cauldron, the area approximately 3 inches below the navel, where the body's vital energies concentrate. During exhalation, this accumulated energy is consciously directed toward the vocal cords, tongue, and resonance cavities, charging the vocal apparatus with additional potency for pronouncing power words. Words pronounced after this respiratory preparation literally carry more energy than ordinary speech, increasing their capacity to influence physical reality. The third foundation is understanding and application of what Agrippa called moments of power, specific periods when astrological, geomagnetic, and circadian conditions align to amplify the effectiveness of verbal work. Just as there are optimal moments for planting physical seeds, there are optimal moments for planting verbal seeds that will eventually manifest as changes in external experience. The most universally powerful moments occur during transitions: dawn, noon, sunset, and midnight. During these transitions, natural energies are in flux, creating windows of opportunity where clearly formulated intentions can more easily insert themselves into the flow of developing events. New moon is particularly favorable for verbal work directed toward initiating new cycles or projects. Full moon amplifies any work related to culmination, completion, or release of patterns that no longer serve. Equinoxes and solstices provide points of maximum power for work intended to create fundamental changes in life direction. But Agrippa had discovered that the most powerful moments of all are intensely personal. Periods when the individual is experiencing significant transitions in their own life. Moments of crisis, celebration, loss, or achievement create internal states of high malleability where conscious speech can reshape experience patterns with effects lasting years or even decades. Chapter 7. The first exercises that Agrippa prescribed for developing the word of power are designed to establish conscious connection between mental intention, emotional response, and vocal expression. Most people speak mechanically, without awareness of how their words are continuously affecting both their internal state and external environment. Developing conscious speech requires breaking these automatic patterns and establishing deliberate control over all aspects of the verbal process. The fundamental exercise consists of dedicating specific periods each day to what Agrippa called completely conscious speech, periods during which every word pronounced is preceded by clear awareness of the intention that motivates it and followed by observation of its effects, both internally and externally. Begin with periods of only 5 minutes where you speak only when you have something specific to communicate, and then speak with complete attention directed toward the process of formulating intention, choosing appropriate words, pronouncing them with total presence, and observing how they affect both your internal state and others' responses. Most beginners quickly discover how much of their ordinary speech is unconscious, redundant, or even counterproductive. Words pronounced from boredom, nervousness, or habit consume vital energy without producing positive value. Developing conscious speech naturally eliminates this energetic waste, conserving verbal power for communications that truly matter. The second exercise develops what Agrippa called inner resonance, the capacity to physically feel how different sounds affect the energetic body. Each vowel, when pronounced with complete awareness, generates characteristic sensations in specific regions of the body. Developing sensitivity to these internal resonances is crucial for selecting correct sounds for specific manifestation objectives. Sit comfortably with spine straight and slowly pronounce each vowel for at least 30 seconds, maintaining focused attention on any physical sensation that emerges. A-S typically generates sensations of opening in the heart area. E-A may create activation in the throat region. E frequently produces sensations of clarity in the head. O can generate sensations of protection in the abdominal area. U often creates sensations of energetic movement in the pelvis. These sensations vary according to individual constitution, but with consistent practice, each person develops a personal map of how different sounds affect their energetic system. This map becomes a guide for consciously selecting sounds that will produce the most appropriate internal states for different types of verbal work. The third fundamental exercise develops conscious vocal projection, the capacity to intentionally direct vocal energy toward specific objectives. While ordinary speech disperses energy in all directions, the word of power must be focused with laser precision toward where its influence is needed. Place a small object approximately 1 meter away and practice directing your voice directly toward that object while pronouncing simple sounds like ah or Visualize your voice as a beam of light traveling from your throat directly to the target object. With practice, you will develop the physical sensation of directing vocal energy with spatial precision. Once projection toward physical objects is mastered, the exercise expands to include projection toward abstract situations. You can direct healing sounds toward a relationship that needs harmony, project vibrations of abundance toward a financial situation requiring improvement, or send protective frequencies toward a loved one facing challenges. Chapter 8. The most revolutionary aspect of Agrippa's system was his understanding that language not only describes reality, it actively participates in its continuous construction. Every word pronounced contributes to solidifying certain patterns of experience while weakening others. The average person, through unconscious use of language, is constantly reinforcing limitations and perpetuating problems without realizing their participation in these processes. Agrippa had identified what he called destructive verbal patterns, habitual ways of speaking that systematically sabotage the speaker's well-being and success. Phrases like "I can't," "It's impossible," "The same thing always happens to me," or "I never have luck" function as commands directed to the subconscious, programming the mind to seek evidence that confirms these limiting statements. But more insidiously, these destructive verbal patterns become self-fulfilling prophecies that influence external events. The person who habitually says, "I never have enough money," is literally instructing the quantum field to organize their experience in ways that confirm this belief. Financial opportunities become invisible, economic decisions are made from scarcity rather than abundance, and spending patterns automatically sabotage any increase in income. Agrippa's grimoire contained specific techniques for identifying and transforming these destructive patterns. The fundamental practice requires maintaining complete awareness of one's own language during extended periods, noting any phrase that expressed limitation, victimization, or powerlessness. Most beginners are surprised to discover how much of their habitual speech is unconsciously programming negative experiences. Once destructive patterns are identified, they must be systematically transformed into what Agrippa called affirmations of power, declarations that program the subconscious mind to seek possibilities instead of limitations. I can't transforms into I am learning how. It's impossible becomes there is a way I have not yet discovered. The same thing always happens to me is reformulated as I am creating new and positive patterns. But Agrippa warned that simply changing words without transforming underlying emotional conviction produces minimal results. Affirmations of power must be pronounced with genuine expectation that they are true, not as mechanical repetitions of positive phrases. This requires internal work to identify and heal the emotional wounds that generate limiting thought patterns. The complete process of verbal transformation, according to Agrippa's system, involves 3 distinct phases. The first phase is purification, the systematic elimination of all verbal patterns that reinforce limitation, victimization, or powerlessness. This phase typically requires 3 to 6 months of conscious practice before spontaneous speech is completely free of destructive programming. The second phase is construction, the deliberate development of verbal patterns that program the subconscious mind to seek opportunities, solutions, and expansive possibilities. This phase involves creating a personal vocabulary of power phrases that can be used automatically in any situation requiring constructive rather than reactive response. The third phase is manifestation, the conscious use of specific verbal formulas to create desired changes in external circumstances. This is the phase most people want to reach immediately, but Agrippa insisted that the 2 preparatory phases are absolute prerequisites for effective and safe manifestation work. Chapter 9. The manifestation formulas developed by Agrippa operate according to principles that modern science is beginning to validate through research in fields like psychoneuroimmunology and quantum physics. Studies have shown that specific emotional states produce measurable changes in brain chemistry, immune function, and even genetic expression. If emotions can alter biology, and if words can generate specific emotions, then it is reasonable that carefully constructed verbal sequences can influence physical processes. But Agrippa went beyond these obvious correlations. His grimoire described how specific verbal formulas can create what he called realization fields, alterations in the energetic environment that facilitate the materialization of specific conditions. These fields operate according to principles similar to those governing electromagnetic fields, but in more subtle dimensions of reality that conventional science cannot yet detect directly. A typical Agrippa formula for manifesting material abundance did not consist simply of affirming, "I have abundant money." Instead, it used specific sequences that first established internal coherence, then programmed the subconscious with specific images of abundance, and finally directed verbal energy toward creating synchronicities that would facilitate financial opportunities. The complete sequence might translate approximately as, "I am an open channel of universal prosperity. My mind recognizes abundant opportunities. My actions are aligned with prosperous flow. I receive with gratitude what I need to serve my highest purpose." Each element of this sequence fulfills a specific function in the overall manifestation process. "I am an open channel" establishes an identity that transcends the limitations of personal ego and connects with universal resources. My mind recognizes opportunities, programs the perceptual system to detect possibilities that would otherwise remain invisible. My actions are aligned creates coherence between conscious intention and automatic behavior. I receive with gratitude establishes the emotional receptivity necessary to allow abundance to actually manifest. But the effectiveness of these formulas depends critically on what Agrippa called emotional saturation, the process of completely filling each word with corresponding feeling during pronunciation. Words pronounced mechanically, without genuine emotional resonance, remain as empty sounds that cannot influence the causal levels of reality. Developing emotional saturation requires specific practice in generating and sustaining precise sentimental states. Before pronouncing an abundance formula, the practitioner must cultivate genuine feelings of gratitude, positive expectation, and receptive openness. These feelings cannot be faked. They must be authentically generated through remembering past experiences of receiving unexpectedly, vividly visualizing desired results, or connecting with the sensation of being unconditionally loved by the universe. Agrippa had developed specific techniques for cultivating each type of emotional state that corresponded to different manifestation categories. For formulas related to healing, the required state was deep compassion combined with absolute confidence in the inherent perfection of all life. For formulas related to relationships, the necessary state was unconditional love mixed with genuine appreciation for each person's uniqueness. For formulas related to creativity and personal expression, the appropriate state was inspired enthusiasm combined with humility about serving as a channel for something greater than individual personality. Each state required specific preparation and could not be generated instantly without prior practice. Chapter 10. The most sophisticated aspect of Agrippa's system concerned what he called cosmic synchronization, the practice of coordinating verbal work with astrological, geomagnetic, and circadian rhythms that dramatically amplify the effectiveness of pronounced formulas. Agrippa had discovered that the universe operates according to predictable cycles that create windows of opportunity for different types of manifestation. Lunar phases provide the most basic cycle for coordinating verbal work. New moon, when the moon is completely dark, creates optimal conditions for planting verbal seeds related to initiating new projects, relationships, or experience patterns. The minimal lunar energy allows clearly formulated intentions to easily insert themselves into the flow of developing events. Waxing moon amplifies any verbal work directed toward growth, expansion, or increase of existing conditions. If you already have moderate abundance and desire to increase it, or if you have a good relationship you want to deepen, waxing moon provides energies that facilitate this type of progressive development. Full moon creates conditions of maximum power for any work requiring culmination, completion, or release. Verbal formulas directed toward resolving chronic problems, healing conflictive relationships, or liberating oneself from limiting patterns function with maximum effectiveness during full moon when cosmic energies facilitate dramatic transformations. Waning moon is ideal for verbal work related to eliminating, reducing, or transforming aspects of experience that no longer serve. Destructive habits, toxic relationships, limiting thought patterns, or problematic health conditions respond better to verbal intervention during waning moon. But Agrippa had discovered that lunar cycles, though important, represent only one dimension of optimal cosmic synchronization. The days of the week correspond to different planets and types of energy that can specifically amplify certain types of verbal work. Sunday, ruled by the sun, is optimal for formulas related to leadership, personal authority, physical vitality, and creative expression. Monday, ruled by the moon, favors verbal work related to emotions, intuition, family, and natural cycles. Tuesday, ruled by Mars, amplifies formulas directed toward courage, decisive action, overcoming obstacles, and protection. Wednesday, ruled by Mercury, is ideal for verbal work related to communication, learning, travel, and mental skills. Thursday, ruled by Jupiter, favors formulas directed toward expansion, abundance, higher education, and spiritual growth. Friday, ruled by Venus, amplifies work related to love, beauty, harmony, and refined pleasures. Saturday, ruled by Saturn, is appropriate for formulas directed toward discipline, structuring, healing karmic patterns, and working with limitations that need to be transformed into strengths. The hours of the day provide another level of synchronization. The hours just after dawn are charged with energies of renewal and new beginnings. Noon provides energies of maximum power and direct manifestation. Evening hours favor work related to completion and release. Midnight creates conditions for working with hidden or subconscious aspects of experience. Agrippa had compiled complex calendars that coordinated all these cycles, allowing the advanced practitioner to identify moments of maximum power when multiple cosmic influences aligned to support specific types of manifestation. Verbal work performed during new moon on Sunday, just after dawn, during spring equinox, would have massive cosmic amplification that could produce results that would seem miraculous by ordinary standards. But the grimoire also contained warnings about respecting these natural rhythms rather than forcing verbal work during inappropriate periods. Attempting to manifest abundance during waning moon, or attempting to release limiting patterns during waxing moon, will not only be ineffective, but can create resistance that makes future work more difficult. Cosmic synchronization requires patience and planning, qualities that many beginners find frustrating in our culture of immediate gratification. But Agrippa insisted that learning to work in harmony with universal rhythms rather than against them is what distinguishes genuine magic from superficial attempts to manipulate reality according to ego preferences. Complete mastery of his system required years of study and practice, but even basic applications of his principles could produce dramatic changes in the practitioner's life. The most dangerous knowledge his grimoire contained was not technical, but psychological. The understanding that every human being possesses the power to fundamentally transform their experience of reality through conscious use of language. This knowledge was dangerous because it made it impossible to continue in patterns of victimization, dependence, or despair once it was fully understood. The individual who masters the word of power must assume complete responsibility for all aspects of their experience, including those they had previously attributed to external forces beyond their control. Agrippa knew that this level of personal responsibility was terrifying for most people who prefer the illusion of being victims of external circumstances rather than recognizing their continuous participation in creating those circumstances through unconscious patterns of thought, emotion, and verbal expression. But for those with sufficient courage to assume conscious mastery over the most fundamental power they possess as human beings, the power of the creative word, his grimoire provided a complete map toward personal freedom that transcends all external limitations. The secrets wait in the sound of your own voice, in the vibration of each word you pronounce, in the intention you infuse into each verbal expression. Agrippa's grimoire was not just a historical text about ancient practices. It was an operations manual for unlimited human potential that is encoded in the most natural and powerful gift we possess, the capacity to speak reality into existence. Chapter 11. Now that you understand the theoretical foundations of verbal power according to Agrippa's teachings, it is time to delve into the specific techniques that constituted the secret core of his grimoire. These practices were developed through decades of careful experimentation and represent the distillation of Hermetic wisdom that had been preserved for millennia in Europe and the Middle East's most select mystery schools. The first fundamental technique that Agrippa called construction of power formulas requires understanding that each word in a verbal sequence fulfills a specific function in the manifestation process. It is not sufficient to combine positive words randomly. Each element must systematically contribute to the desired result. An effective formula, according to Agrippa's system, always contains 5 essential components in specific sequence. The first component is invocation of authority, a declaration that establishes the source of power from which one speaks. This does not mean invoking external entities, but consciously connecting with the highest aspect of one's own spiritual nature. Phrases like, "I am conscious expression of infinite intelligence," "I speak from my perfect divine nature," or "I declare from the authority of my immortal soul," establish the level of consciousness from which all subsequent formula will operate. Without this invocation of authority, the words that follow remain as expressions of limited personal ego, dramatically reducing their effectiveness. The second component is recognition of present situation. A clear and honest statement of current conditions that need transformation. This requires absolute precision without emotional dramatization or judgments about whether the situation is good or bad. You simply acknowledge what currently exists as a starting point for transformation. I recognize that my current financial situation requires improvement. I observe that my relationship with a specific person needs greater harmony, or I see that my physical health can be optimized, provide clear bases upon which to build transformation work. Avoiding this honest recognition of present conditions creates subconscious resistance that sabotages manifestation efforts. The third component is declaration of new reality. The precise specification of desired conditions expressed as if they were already true in the present. This is the part of the formula that requires the most care because it must be specific enough to direct the manifestation process, but flexible enough to allow the universe to provide results that may be better than what personal ego can imagine. I now experience financial abundance appropriate for my spiritual growth and service. My relationship with person now expresses harmony, mutual respect, and genuine love, or my body now functions with vitality, balance, and radiant health. Exemplify declarations that specify desired results without limiting how they can manifest. The fourth component is command of realization, a direct instruction directed to the subconscious and quantum field to implement the specified transformation. This command must be pronounced with absolute authority, as if you were a king issuing a decree that cannot be questioned or disobeyed. This manifests now in perfect harmony for the greatest good of all. Let this be done according to divine law, brash, or I declare that this is so, on all levels of reality. Function as commands that activate the manifestation processes necessary to transform the declaration of new reality into current experience. The fifth component is sealing of the formula, a statement that closes the process and releases the intention to operate without interference from subsequent doubts, modifications, or anxieties. Once properly sealed, a formula must be left to function without constant monitoring or compulsive repetition. So it is, and so it shall be. Sealed in the light of perfect truth, or simply, Amen, meaning, let it be so. Complete the formula and release it to create results. After sealing, any worry about whether the formula will work or when results will manifest introduces interference that can delay or complicate the realization process. Chapter 12. Once basic formula construction is mastered, Agrippa taught advanced vocalization techniques that dramatically amplified the potency of any verbal work. These techniques were based on his understanding that a formula's power depends not only on chosen words, but on how those words are pronounced at an energetic level. The first advanced technique is what Agrippa called power breathing, a specific oxygenation method that saturates the nervous system with vital energy before pronouncing important formulas. This practice goes beyond basic conscious breathing and involves precise coordination of respiratory rhythms with directed visualization. Sit comfortably with spine erect and place hands over the heart area. Inhale slowly for a count of 8, while visualizing golden light entering through the crown of the head and descending to completely fill the heart region. Hold the breath for a count of 4 while feeling this light expanding to fill the entire torso. Exhale for a count of 8 while visualizing the light moving from the heart toward the throat, completely filling the entire vocal region, including vocal cords, tongue, and resonance cavities in the head. At the end of exhalation, you should feel the throat literally charged with luminous energy. Repeat the cycle 7 times before pronouncing any important formula. Words pronounced after this preparation carry an energetic charge that can be physically perceived by sensitive people and significantly amplifies the formula's impact on the causal levels of reality. The second advanced technique is harmonic intonation, pronouncing formulas using specific tones that create resonance with different aspects of universal energetic structure. Agrippa had discovered that certain tones facilitate certain types of manifestation, and that the same formula can produce dramatically different results depending on the tone in which it is pronounced. For manifestation of material abundance, formulas should be pronounced in deep, rich tones that resonate in the abdominal region. These tones connect with terrestrial energies that govern the materialization of physical resources. For emotional healing, use medium tones that resonate in the heart region, facilitating harmonization of sentimental patterns. For mental clarity and manifestation of knowledge, pronounce formulas in high tones that resonate in the head, activating brain centers associated with insight and understanding. For spiritual protection, alternate between low and high tones, creating a complex harmonic signature that establishes energetic boundaries on multiple levels simultaneously. The third advanced technique is total power pronunciation, a method involving not only the voice, but the entire body as a vocalization instrument. Agrippa had understood that maximum effectiveness is achieved when every cell of the body participates in the process of pronouncing the formula. While pronouncing each word of an important formula, allow sound vibrations to completely fill your body from head to feet. Feel consonants as specific textures that massage different internal organs. Experience vowels as waves of energy that rhythmically expand and contract your entire physical structure. With practice, you will develop the capacity to pronounce formulas with your entire being, not just with your vocal apparatus. In these states of total pronunciation, you temporarily become a living instrument of the formula, amplifying its power to levels that can produce almost immediate synchronicities in the external environment. Chapter 13. The most sophisticated aspect of Agrippa's system concerned what he called programming the unconscious through sacred speech. Specific techniques for using directed language to rewrite deep patterns in the subconscious that had been established during childhood, inherited genetically, or developed through traumas and social conditioning. Agrippa had understood that the subconscious mind operates like an extremely sophisticated biological computer that stores and executes programs determining automatic responses to different situations. These subconscious programs, once installed, operate continuously below the threshold of ordinary consciousness, influencing thoughts, emotions, decisions, and behaviors in ways that can be completely counterproductive to the individual's conscious objectives. Most attempts at personal change fail because they focus solely on modifying conscious behaviors without addressing the underlying subconscious programs that generate those behaviors. It is like trying to change what appears on a computer screen without altering the software creating that screen. Superficial changes last only as long as conscious effort is maintained, but old patterns return automatically as soon as conscious attention is distracted. Sacred speech, when used appropriately, can directly access these deep levels of programming and install new patterns that operate automatically without requiring continuous conscious effort. But this work requires specific techniques that are completely different from mechanical repetition of positive affirmations. The first fundamental technique is what Agrippa called identification of limiting programs, a systematic process for discovering exactly which subconscious beliefs are sabotaging conscious transformation efforts. These limiting programs are rarely obvious to the conscious mind because they operate through emotional associations and thought patterns that seem completely natural and justified. The method consists of examining any area of your life where you experience recurring frustration, self-sabotage, or inability to maintain positive changes. Rather than analyzing external circumstances, focus on identifying what beliefs about yourself, other people, or how life works might be generating these problematic patterns. For example, if you continually experience financial difficulties despite working hard and making apparently intelligent economic decisions, explore what subconscious beliefs about money, success, or your personal worth might be creating subconscious resistance to abundance. Common programs include "money corrupts good people," "I don't deserve more than basic necessities," or "material abundance interferes with spiritual growth." A specific technique for discovering these hidden programs consists of completing sentences that begin with "deep down, I believe that," followed by the problematic area. Deep down, I believe that money. Deep down, I believe that relationships. Deep down, I believe that my body. Deep down, I believe that I. Allow responses to emerge spontaneously without conscious censorship, and you will frequently discover beliefs that completely contradict your conscious values, but have been operating automatically for years. The second technique is deactivation of obsolete programs, a specific process for neutralizing the emotional charge that keeps limiting patterns active. Subconscious programs are maintained in place through emotional energy, typically fear, pain, or trauma, associated with experiences where they were originally formed. For each limiting program identified, use specific formulas that acknowledge its origin without judging it. Appreciate any protection it may have provided in the past, and release it as no longer necessary for your present well-being. A typical formula would be, "I recognize that I developed the belief-specific program to protect myself during original situation. I appreciate how this belief served me then, and now I release it with love, knowing I no longer need it for my security and growth." The third technique is installation of empowerment programs, the process of establishing new subconscious patterns that automatically support conscious objectives of growth and realization. These new programs must be formulated as declarations that the subconscious can accept as true without generating internal resistance. Subconscious resistance typically arises when new programs contradict current experience too dramatically. If you currently experience financial scarcity, a program like "I am a millionaire" will generate resistance because it contradicts available external evidence. Instead, use bridge programs like "I am developing a healthy relationship with abundance." "My personal worth does not depend on my financial situation." Or "I am open to receiving abundance in ways that serve my spiritual growth." Chapter 14. The most advanced techniques in Agrippa's grimoire involved what he called ritual use of sacred language, coordinating verbal work with specific ceremonial elements that dramatically amplified the impact of pronounced formulas. These rituals were not superstitious theatricality, but precise applications of psychological and energetic principles that create optimal conditions for deep pattern transformation. The first fundamental ritual element is creating sacred space, a physical and energetic environment that separates verbal work from ordinary distractions and influences. Agrippa had discovered that the subconscious responds more completely to formulas pronounced in contexts that signal something extraordinary and important is occurring. Sacred space can be created simply but effectively. Choose a place where you will not be interrupted for at least 30 minutes. Physically clean the area and remove any objects associated with ordinary concerns like work, bills, or entertainment. Place elements symbolizing qualities you wish to invoke. Candles to represent illumination, crystals or stones for connection with terrestrial energies, flowers or incense for beauty and elevation. More important than specific physical elements is the intention with which you create the space. While preparing the area, maintain conscious awareness that you are establishing a place where your highest nature can express itself without the limitations of ordinary personality. Each preparatory action, from cleaning surfaces to lighting candles, should be performed as a conscious act of devotion to your spiritual growth. The second ritual element is energetic purification, a process of cleansing your auric field of emotional, mental, and energetic influences that might interfere with verbal work effectiveness. These influences can include residues from stressful interactions during the day, concerns about future responsibilities, or habitual thought patterns that maintain consciousness at ordinary levels. A specific technique consists of visualizing a cascade of golden white light descending from approximately 1 meter above your head, flowing through your body and energetic field, and carrying away any tension, confusion, or negativity toward the earth, where it can be transformed into neutral energy. While visualizing this purifying cascade, pronounce, "I release myself from all influence that does not serve my highest purpose. I am clean, clear, and open to divine guidance." The third ritual element is invocation of higher presences, the practice of consciously inviting guidance and support from wiser aspects of your own nature or benevolent intelligences that can facilitate your transformation work. This does not mean dependence on external forces, but recognition that your ordinary conscious personality is only a limited expression of much vaster resources available when appropriately requested. Agrippa used specific invocations developed by Hermetic masters during centuries of experimentation. A typical invocation would be, "I invite the presence of my immortal soul, my protective genius, and all forces of light that serve the evolution of consciousness. May your wisdom guide my words, your strength amplify my intention, and your love bless this work for the greatest good of all." The fourth element is ceremonial pronunciation. The technique of pronouncing specific formulas with the gravity, intention, and total presence you would normally reserve for occasions of maximum personal importance. Each word must be pronounced as if it were a matter of life and death, because in a certain sense it is. Each effective formula marks the death of limiting patterns and the birth of expanded possibilities. During ceremonial pronunciation, maintain awareness that you are not simply a person repeating hopeful words, but a conscious channel through which universal intelligence is expressing itself to create more perfect order in your personal experience. This elevated perspective automatically transforms the energetic quality of any pronounced formula. The fifth ritual element is silent integration, a period of complete quietude after completing verbal work, during which you allow activated energies to settle in your nervous system and energetic field without interference from mental analysis or anxious expectations. This silence period is crucial because it allows deep levels of your psyche to process and integrate changes initiated by pronounced formulas. Sit in complete silence for at least 10 minutes after any important ritual work. If thoughts arise about whether formulas will work, when results will manifest, or how changes might develop, simply allow these thoughts to pass without emotional engagement. The work is complete. Now it must be allowed to function without supervision from the conscious mind. Chapter 15. Complete mastery of Agrippa's system required understanding and implementing what he called conscious verbal living. The practice of using directed language not only during formal work sessions, but as an integral aspect of daily existence. Agrippa had observed that even the most powerful ritual work can be sabotaged by unconscious patterns of ordinary speech that contradict ceremonial intentions. The average person pronounces between 15,000 and 20,000 words each day, the vast majority without conscious awareness of how these words are continuously influencing their internal state and external circumstances. Casual conversations, automatic complaints, habitual statements about personal limitations, and reactive emotional expressions create a constant stream of verbal programming that can completely neutralize the effects of formal spiritual work. Developing conscious verbal living requires gradually transforming all aspects of language use until every word pronounced contributes constructively to personal well-being and spiritual evolution. This is a process that typically requires years of disciplined practice, but produces such dramatic changes in experience quality that it completely justifies the invested effort. The first phase of development is elimination of destructive language, systematic identification and replacement of all forms of speech that program limitation, victimization, or negativity. This includes not only obviously negative expressions like complaints and criticisms, but also more subtle forms of limiting language that seem innocuous, but cumulatively create expectation patterns that restrict available possibilities. Phrases like "I'm not good at," "It always happens to me that," "I never can," "It's impossible," "I don't have enough," or "I don't deserve." Function as commands directed to the subconscious that instruct the mind to seek evidence confirming these limitations. Each time you pronounce one of these phrases, you are literally training your nervous system to perceive reality through filters that make opportunities and possibilities invisible that might contradict these limiting expectations. The practice consists of maintaining complete awareness of your speech during specific periods each day, initially 15 minutes, gradually expanding until you can consciously monitor everything you say for complete hours. When you detect any limiting expression, stop immediately and reformulate it in language that opens possibilities rather than closing them. "I am not good at mathematics" transforms into "I am developing my mathematical understanding." "I always arrive late" becomes "I am creating new patterns of punctuality." "I don't have enough money" is reformulated as "my financial resources are expanding to meet my authentic needs." The second phase is establishment of constructive language, installing new speech patterns that automatically program positive expectations, openness to opportunities, and confidence in your capacity to create beneficial changes in any area of life. This goes beyond simply avoiding negativity toward actively creating desired realities through strategic use of affirmations integrated into ordinary conversations. Instead of saying, "I hope everything goes well," use "I trust that the best possibilities will develop." Instead of "I don't know what to do," say, "I am open to receiving the guidance I need." Instead of "I wish I had more money," declare, "I am grateful for the abundance that is manifesting in my life." These substitutions may seem artificial initially, but with practice they become natural and automatic. More importantly, they begin producing observable changes in how others respond to you and in the type of opportunities that appear in your experience. The third phase is blessing language. The practice of consciously using your speech to radiate positive energy toward all people, situations, and circumstances you encounter during the day. Each verbal interaction becomes an opportunity to contribute constructively to collective well-being while simultaneously programming your own subconscious with expectations of abundance, harmony, and success. When someone asks, "How are you?" instead of automatically responding with complaints about minor problems, respond with genuine appreciation for positive aspects of your experience. "I feel grateful for the opportunities developing in my life," or "I'm enjoying the growth process I'm experiencing." When encountering challenging situations, instead of focusing verbally on difficulties, direct your speech toward constructive possibilities inherent in the situation. "This situation is teaching me something valuable," or "I trust this experience is preparing me for something better." When interacting with people going through difficulties, instead of sympathizing with their problems in ways that reinforce them, use language that subtly elevates them toward more empowered perspectives. "It sounds like you're navigating an important transition," or "I admire your strength in handling these challenges." Chapter 16. The most advanced and powerful aspect of Agrippa's system concerned what he called direct manifestation through command speech, the capacity to use specific formulas to create immediate and observable changes in circumstances that would normally seem completely beyond personal control. This was the culmination of years of practice at all previous levels of the system, and represented complete mastery of hermetic principles governing the relationship between consciousness and manifested experience. Agrippa had discovered that when an individual achieved sufficient purification of intention, mastery of vocal techniques, and alignment with cosmic rhythms, they could pronounce commands that were fulfilled with rapidity that would seem miraculous to external observers. These commands did not violate natural laws, but operated according to quantum principles that modern science is beginning to understand. That appropriately focused consciousness can collapse wave functions into specific configurations that manifest as external events. Direct manifestation commands require specific conditions that must be met exactly before they can be used effectively. The first condition is complete detachment from outcome, the capacity to pronounce the command with absolute authority while remaining completely free of emotional anxiety about whether it will work or when it will manifest. Any attachment, doubt, or desperation contaminates the purity of intention necessary for direct manifestation. This paradox of detachment is one of the most challenging aspects of the advanced system. You must desire the result enough to motivate the effort of formulating and pronouncing the command, but you must also be willing to completely release any demand that it manifest in specific ways or within particular time frames. It is like shooting an arrow. You must aim carefully, but once the arrow is released, any attempt to control its flight only interferes with its capacity to reach the target. The second condition is developed spiritual authority, establishing a conscious identity that transcends the limitations of individual personality and aligns with universal forces that possess real power to reorganize circumstances. This authority does not arise from personal ego, but from genuine recognition that your essential nature is an individualized expression of the cosmic intelligence that ordered the universe into existence. Direct manifestation commands are pronounced from this expanded level of identity, not as petitions from a limited personality, hoping for favors from external forces, but as instructions from a conscious aspect of universal intelligence directing reorganization of patterns within its own domain of influence. The third condition is appropriate cosmic moment, identification of periods when astrological, geomagnetic, and circadian energies align in ways that facilitate accelerated manifestation. Commands pronounced during these power moments can produce results in hours or days, while the same commands pronounced during energetically unfavorable periods may require weeks or months to manifest if they manifest completely. Agrippa had identified universal moments of maximum power that any practitioner could use: the exact moment of dawn during equinoxes and solstices, the peak of full moon when it is directly overhead your location, and the first minutes after solar or lunar eclipses. During these periods, cosmic configurations create conditions that dramatically amplify any conscious manifestation work. Chapter 17, the final legacy of Agrippa's grimoire, transcends even mastery of direct manifestation techniques to reveal the deepest truth about the nature of human language: that every word pronounced by every person continuously contributes to the collective creation of the consensual reality we experience as human civilization. This recognition completely transforms personal responsibility for conscious language use. Agrippa had understood that the physical world we perceive as solid and objective is actually a collective verbal construction maintained in existence by the unconscious consensus of millions of people using language in ways that reinforce the same limitations, expectations, and illusions. Wars, poverty, disease, and suffering persist not because they are inevitable, but because they are constantly recreated through collective speech patterns that program these conditions as normal aspects of human experience. When sufficient individuals transform their personal verbal patterns according to Hermetic principles, they begin creating what Agrippa called elevated reality fields, zones of influence where ordinary limitations of human experience become progressively more malleable. People entering these fields frequently experience increased synchronicities, accelerated healings, unexpected opportunities, and a general sense that life flows with greater grace and less resistance. These elevated reality fields are not abstract mystical phenomena, but measurable effects resulting from collective application of conscious language principles. When groups of people coordinate their speech according to Agrippa's teachings, they can create observable changes in their communities that transcend what any individual could achieve working alone. The grimoire contained specific instructions for what Agrippa called social transformation work through group speech. Techniques for coordinating verbal formulas among multiple practitioners with the objective of elevating collective consciousness and creating more harmonious conditions for an entire community. These group works required precise coordination not only of pronounced words, but also of timing, intention, and spiritual purification level of each participant. A typical example would be a group of advanced practitioners coordinating specific formulas during full moon to reduce violence in their city. Each participant would pronounce the same sequence: "We invoke the divine peace that resides in every human heart. May all aggression transform into understanding, all separation into union, all fear into love. May our community reflect the harmony of perfect cosmic order." When multiple individuals with sufficient spiritual development pronounce these formulas simultaneously with pure intention, they can generate effects manifesting as statistically significant reduction in violent crimes during subsequent weeks. But Agrippa warned that this level of work requires extreme ethical responsibility. Groups attempting to influence collective conditions without having completed their own personal purification can create counterproductive or even destructive effects. The amplified power of group work magnifies both virtues and impurities of participants, making it crucial that only individuals with genuinely altruistic motivations and advanced levels of spiritual development participate in social transformation work. The most extraordinary aspect of Agrippa's complete system is his vision of humanity's future when sufficient individuals master the art of conscious speech. He prophesied an era when language would be universally recognized as the most powerful creative technology available to the human species, and when education in conscious word use would be considered as fundamental as basic literacy. In this future civilization, children would learn from early age how their words literally create their reality experience. They would be taught to use language to facilitate their own growth, contribute to collective well-being, and consciously participate in the continuous evolution of human consciousness. Diseases, conflicts, and scarcity would become progressively rare, not through external technological interventions, but through collective use of verbal patterns that program health, harmony, and abundance as natural conditions of human experience. Masters of conscious speech would become the true leaders of this transformed civilization, not through political or economic authority, but through their capacity to inspire and facilitate the development of creative potential in others. Their influence would operate primarily through the example of lives demonstrating what becomes possible when language is used as a conscious creation tool, rather than an unconscious habit of limitation. Agrippa understood that this civilizational transformation would not occur suddenly, but through a gradual process where isolated individuals would begin awakening to the power of their own speech, then connect with others of similar mind, and eventually reach sufficient critical mass to influence the developmental direction of the entire species. Signs that this process is already beginning are evident to those who understand what to observe. The increase in interest in healing modalities using sound and vibration, the proliferation of teachings about the power of intention and directed prayer, the growing awareness of how language can program both limitations and possibilities, and the emergence of communities dedicated to using conscious communication as the basis for more harmonious and creative relationships. Agrippa's grimoire was not simply a manual of esoteric techniques for a few privileged initiates. It was a protocol for the evolutionary transformation of all humanity through awakening to the creative power each person possesses in their most basic and natural capacity, the ability to speak reality into existence. Your voice carries the seed of new worlds. Every word you pronounce is an opportunity to contribute to creating a higher reality, not only for yourself, but for the entire human family. The language you choose to use at this moment is participating in determining what kind of world future generations will inherit. Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa risked his life to preserve this knowledge through the darkest centuries of human history, trusting that eventually the time would come when humanity would be ready to reclaim its most fundamental creative power. That time has arrived. The question is not whether you have the capacity to transform your reality through conscious use of language. The question is whether you will have the courage to assume the responsibility that accompanies this power. Agrippa's grimoire now lives in your understanding. Its power is activated not through memorization of specific formulas, but through the conscious decision to honor every word you pronounce as a sacred act of creation. The word that transforms reality is not something you must learn. It is something you must remember, because it already resides as infinite potential in the vibration of your own voice. Speak consciously. Create deliberately. The universe is listening, and your word is law.